Hey everybody, Eric here in the garden today. We've been warm the last couple days, but really cooled off. We're expecting some rain later this weekend, especially as we head into Sunday night and Monday. The point of this video is a quick update on what our roses look like after fertilization. Also testing out something new. I've got some feedback that it's been a little bit hard to hear, especially during windy conditions. So I'm using the headset that comes with my phone, and it has a little microphone there, so that should improve it. This is kind of a test because we're kind of windy today itself. First thing I want to talk about is measuring water in your garden. I'm going to do a follow-up video down the road. Before we get to that, which is a rain gauge, I actually tested each one, or not each one, I took one of the drip emitters in my garden and I tested it, and it actually puts out 8 gallons in an hour. The literature that came with these drippers said between 6 and 10 depending on your pressure, and my pressure is usually about 35 psi, so they got that really close. I was impressed. I'll do a follow-up video, but I tested one of the drippers at the end of the line. So these are pressure compensating, so in theory each bush is getting the same amount of water. So that told me that I don't need to keep my drippers on much more than a half an hour once or twice a week. So that was very interesting. We'll do another video on that. The point of this video is going to talk about this post I'm in the process of putting in the ground, and this gauge. I'll put it in the link below, but there's a program called CocoRaws where you can get these gauges. They're about $30 to $35. And you might say, well, I have a little test tube gauge at home in my garden that does a fine job. By trade, I'm a meteorologist, so I'll give you a little bit of background. This is a much better gauge. I don't make any profit off this. I'm not selling the gauges, but it's got a 4-inch diameter on top. So when you mount it to a post, it's going to be more accurate than what you would have with what I call a test tube gauge, which is those small 1-inch ones that you get at the local gardening store or hardware store. This is much more accurate. And the reason why you want to be accurate with your rainfall, if you know exactly how much fell in your garden, you'll know if you need to water or not. And you might say, well, Eric, if it rains hard, I know I don't need to rain, or I don't need to water. If it doesn't rain hard, I know I need to water. It's not that simple. Think about all those times you've had rain at night. You don't have an exact measurement, or you might have a downpour and think you had a lot of rain, and you come out and you check your rain gauge and you actually don't have that much rain. So this is one of the most valuable tools in the garden. A rain gauge, I highly recommend one with a bigger diameter on top. If you have a digital rain gauge, those tend to have bigger openings on top, so they're okay. They can underestimate the rainfall when it's really heavy. They have a mechanism that's called a tipping bucket. It's like a seesaw. It goes back and forth in the middle of the gauge. And they're accurate, but if it's a downpour, a tropical downpour, they tend to underestimate a little bit. So in the pecking order, it would be this style gauge. Again, I'll put a link to where you can get this in the video below. An automated or digital rain gauge, and then the very last one would be those test tube gauges. I do not recommend those. I would say it's better than nothing, but not that much better than nothing. My drill needed to be charged, so once I get that screwed in to the post, we'll show you that here in the next video. As far as the garden's going, lots of new growth. You can see the residue from the spraying I did the other day, so that's good news. So I just wanted to show you some of the growth just in the last couple days. We've been in the 70s and we've been very warm, so our soil temperatures are shooting through the 60s, so they're really warming up, and you can see all this new growth. Some new growers in terms of roses get a little worried when they see leaves like this. They're purple, they look different. These are just new baby leaves, so that's why they look like that. As they get more mature, you'll go from that, you can see new growth there, to more mature leaves. So those purple leaves you're seeing, again, here's a perfect example. New leaves, slightly older, more mature. That just shows you the difference between the two. But things are rocking and rolling in the garden. I mentioned we've been warm. We're anticipating some steady rain here Sunday night into Monday. And you watch, in the next week to 10 days, these roses are going to take off because of that water. And then if you saw my video of the fertilization, the slow release is working its way down into the soil. and those pellets we put out, alfalfa, they just break down. So that's going to be beautiful. You can see a lot of it's on the soil surface. I did shoot a little bit of Roundup. Again, I'm not a huge fan, not because of the health concerns, because I wear rubber gloves, I'm safe, but roses, like tomatoes, if they just sniff Roundup or glyphosate, they don't like it. So you got to be real careful. You don't want to spray near the roses. But when you have weeds out in the middle of the garden, I'm hitting those, and you can start to see the effects. That's a weed right there, of course, but you can see it starting to be impacted by that chemical I sprayed down. The whole idea is to not disturb the soil much because I have that pre-emergent down. So when I have little weeds pop up, I'm going to shoot them with the Roundup. Maybe do some light hand pulling when it's right by the rose itself. Otherwise, we'll do another round of pre-emergent here in the next month or so. I'll last leave you with Randy Scott. Again, nothing wrong with the leaves. That's just the residue of the spray doing its job, keeping that black spot away. Hope everybody's being safe. Remember, given our current situation, I know there's a lot that we can't do, but one thing you can do, obviously if you don't have a large group, if you're by yourself and you're out in the garden enjoying your roses, pruning, fertilizing, watering, doing all the things we like to do, that is a safe activity. So get out there, get some fresh air, get those tasks done that you usually don't have time to do because you're doing a million other things. And we'll keep posting these videos. You watch the next 10 days. These gardens are going to be really looking good with that rain and that fertilizer we just put down. Have a great one. Comment below. I'll be curious how the audio is this time. Thanks to my wife for telling me that these headphones actually had a microphone with them. Have a good day.